Oh, baby. So there's been some stunning news. For the first time in a long time, a country has turned around and kicked central banking out. For real. Now, the Rothschilds have been running central banking globally for generations. A couple of 100 years, actually. And I've posted a few articles up on our Facebook and YouTube, website at americasvoicenow.org, and also on our Facebook page at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. I'd like you to go read them for the benefit of those who are catching us on YouTube. Look in the subject line or in that little description box where there'll be a link to the story. There's a couple of them. Hungary wants to repay their IMF loan early and close the central banking office of the IMF. Hungary plans to pay back its IMF loan early and called on the fund to shut its Budapest office in what could be a symbolic move by Prime Minister Orban's government to display its economic sovereignty. Now, you hear very little talk about this in the media, and the reason why is because they're controlled by money, and the central bankers have run rampant over the lives of, for all intents and purposes, everyone globally for a very, very long time. It's interesting how actually few countries are not subject to central banking. And the list of them is very telling because it's kind of funny that some of the last nations on earth to not participate in central banking were Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya. Really? Yes, really. They all recently fell to military action asserted by the United States of America. And who's pulling the strings of the bank of the government here? Well, the Fed is, and their ilk. There are a few left in the world that aren't central banking tied. Cuba is one. Sudan is another one. North Korea is another one. And I want you to recognize, listen to how ostracized those countries are. And I'm not saying they're not under the rule of tyrants. They are. But that's not the point. You see, they're ostracized from the world community because they won't play the central banking game. Guess who else? And I know I'm going to get a flood of emails about people who are going to scream bloody murder about this one. But guess who else doesn't have a central bank? Vatican. The Vatican doesn't use a central bank. Now, it is a city-state, and I know it's not technically a country, but the Vatican does not have a central bank, and it does not allow itself to be manipulated by central banking rules. It does have its own Institute for the Works of Religion, and it's a privately held institute run by an advisory board who reports directly to the Committee of Cardinals and the Pope. But it is interesting to note that the Vatican does not play in the central banking game. There are other locations, there are other countries that don't use central banking. But for the most part, there are very, very few of them. And it's interesting to note that all of those countries that don't play in central banks are ostracized and or, for all intents and purposes, demonized by the world, by the press, by the other governments, by the world, the world government, the New World Order, the United Nations, and others. Andorra is a tiny and prosperous and well-to-do economy in southwestern Europe. Tourism industry is the highest in the country, is the highlight of the country's financial system, and it does not utilize central banking. Now, it does have some It does have some involvement in the euro, but it does not utilize central banking. The Sudan is another one that does not allow central banking. And Monaco is another one. Monaco is a country in Western Europe which is governed under a form of constitutional monarchy since 1911. One of Monaco's main sources of income, of course, is tourism and gambling. The state retains monopolies, so it's a monarchy, but they do not allow a central bank. And, you know, central banks were originally designed and geared and created to indebt nation states, especially monarchies. And if you ever wonder why wars are perpetrated, it's because the central bankers want a war. Because then they go to the government and they say, we're going to lend you the money to prosecute this war. And the country gets embedded in this debt into these banksters. And then the banksters control the economies. Now, you know, it was Rothschild, the inventor of central banking, who said, allow me to control a nation's monetary supply, and I care not a whit who makes their laws. And that, ladies and gentlemen, ought to tell you a lot. Now, Hungary's come out, and they've said, we're going to pay off our debt early. Hungary's ability to avoid the austerity programs faced by many of its European neighbors will be the government's main selling point when it bids for re-election next year. In a letter to International Monetary Fund central leaders and Christine Lagarde, she's the head of the IMF, central bank chief, I can't pronounce his name, from Hungary, was considering an early repayment of outstanding sums that were owed since the 2008 loan by the IMF to Hungary. Central Europe's most indebted nation was pulled back from the brink of bankruptcy with a 20 billion euro rescue package from the IMF and the European Union amid the global crisis. After he took office in 2010, Prime Minister Orban abruptly ended that program as the government sought to control the country's financial affairs on its own. It initiated an unorthodox campaign that included Europe's highest bank tax and special levies on businesses. Relations between the two sides have been kind of sketchy since then. Orban's populist government bolstered market confidence for about a year with the promise of a new IMF safety net, while he simultaneously ran an anti-IMF campaign in the local media. Now, here's the deal. They are, at this point, saying, we want the IMF out of our country, and they are paying off the debt that they owe so that they can say, we're going to issue debt-free money. Now, what is debt-free money? Debt-free money means that it has to be backed by some sort of standard, right? In other words, you know, it's on a metallic standard of gold or silver or whatever the case may be. For decades, these globalist central bankers have used debt and the control of currency to enslave nations. And so, and every time they turn around, they go out there and they conquer these renegade countries that won't play ball, right? And, you know, they do it through proxy wars. They do it through insurrections. They do it through, I mean, why do you think we've been in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya? Because they weren't members of the cartel. That's why, folks. I mean, there were other motivations, too. You know, there's an enormous amount of resources in those countries, not just oil. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but Afghanistan has the highest level of lithium in the world. They are a central resource for lithium globally. And lithium is important in the manufacture of what? Batteries. Batteries? What are you talking about? Well, when you're talking about a green energy planet, batteries matter, and lithium is necessary to make them work. They're also the prime producer of heroin. Did you know that when the Taliban ran Afghanistan, they had pretty much run the heroin producers out of business? Or at least they controlled it to the point where they were the only ones who profited from it. Now that the Taliban is gone, heroin production in Afghanistan is up like some 400%. And again, we are now acting as a police force, a private security force, protecting heroin crop growing in Afghanistan. This is the same heroin that finds its way onto the streets of America to dumb down an entire population. I don't care about those who OD on it. That's their problem. Good riddance. Have a nice day. Lean out the gene pool. But I am concerned about the fact that young people pick it up and then they turn around and they become what? Leeches, ticks on society. And they become apathetic. They become numbed down and dumbed down to what's going on around them. Drugs are a government's way of controlling its population. Only a certain percentage. They know that there are lots and lots of people out there that wouldn't touch an illicit drug. For those, they have companies like Pfizer and Merck. Yeah, all those antidepressants you're taking, have a nice day. You ain't no different than the guy who's sitting there shooting heroin in a needle. You're allowing your brain to be rewired and manipulated. Governments want drugs. They want illegal drugs and they want legal illicit ones. And they have absolutely no problem taking over a country like Afghanistan, where they can up the ante and push the drug business faster and harder and better. They can monitor and oversee the transport and the shipment so that it gets here safely, while claiming that the DEA is on watch. I mean, talk about the left hand fighting against its own right hand. Lithium, one of the number one products out of Afghanistan. You know, the world doesn't want to see lithium controlled by people they don't control. And so central banking is instituted wherever it has to be. In the past decade, two of these former nations, Libya and Iraq and Afghanistan, have all fallen to military insurgent forces. Why is that? Those nations refuse to be involved in the Rothschild's game of central banking. The truth is, the world is getting smarter. And the internet is a source of information that is outside the control of the mainstream ministries of propaganda in every nation globally. They don't like it. The truth is, they really, really hate the fact that a guy like me can sit here and talk about this stuff. However small a flea I am on the elephant's hiney, you know, I know they want to swat me, and I know they swat plenty of others who spill their secrets. Look at Edward Snowden. Look at a guy like Binney, who left the NSA and was a whistleblower. But the truth is, they hate this ability or inability to control the media and control the propaganda that you're fed. Printing money and having a federal central bank involved in your system is, for all intents and purposes, a terrible, terrible way to run a country. Because once you've turned your money supply over to a cabal of bankers, you are now under the control of gangsters. It's that simple. The Federal Reserve has been in existence for over 100 years. Not a single time have they been audited. And when they are probed and questioned by Congress, the response they come back with is, that's not your place to ask us, and we don't have to tell you what our inner workings are. Really? I mean, are you trying to tell me that you have complete dictatorial control over our international and domestic money supply. You have the authority in your charter to create treaties with foreign governments. You have the wherewithal and the ability to increase and decrease the flow of money, to raise and lower interest rates, to affect our entire economy. And Congress has no right to ask you questions? Is that possible? Every nation that is a member of the central banking cabal is treated to a series of booms and busts. And every time the bust comes, that's when inflation kicks in, and the hidden tax of drawing wealth away from the people and businesses and what have you, that's when that begins. Now, let me listen, I got to tell you something. People say to me all the time, well, why do you think they do this? I mean, how much wealth do they really want? It's not wealth. I said this yesterday, and I'm going to say it again because I think you need to understand it. This is not about gathering wealth. This is about stealing the resources with which you would use to fight back. I think you need to understand, they don't care about your money. They only care about taking that resource from you, because with that resource, you have the wherewithal and the ability to fight back. If you can stop the flow of food and supplies to an army, what happens? That army ceases to function. And if you can take the money out of the hands of individuals who would ordinarily utilize that money for things which would necessitate or necessarily change the tone and the tenor of things in the country, you do that. Because every attack on every elemental side of the enemy is a successful one. So they attack you on your Bill of Rights, First and Fourth and Second and Third and Fifth and Eighth Amendment, 10th Amendment, etc. Simultaneously, they attack your ability to have money to fund your war against them. Everything, they're attacking our food supply by putting Monsanto in charge of the entire global food chain. Don't you see what's happening here? Every aspect, every element, every facet of the diamond is being struck. And the monetary supply that exists in a nation is directly correlated to how strong you can fight back. They don't care about the money. They have more money than they could ever spend. These are people who live lavish lives that you would never even be able to comprehend. It's not about the money. It's about draining the resources from you that you would ordinarily use to fight the war. The war of liberty and the war of freedom. That's what this is about. The booms and the busts, the control, the domination, the registration, the concept of making sure everybody has to turn over everything about their lives through Obamacare, the data hub, the NSA. This is all about control, people. It's not that they really care about you. They just want to know every cow in the herd. They got to count them. Don't you get it? The dossier that's being built on you is nothing different than the ear tag in a cow. It's just a way to identify you. This information about every financial transaction that you do that the NSA has got, how they've broken SSL encryption, and they monitor the books you buy and the meal you paid for with an ATM or a debit card over at the local restaurant, and the travel you take and the credit card bills you pay to cover your cable bill. They don't really care. All they do care about is the fact that they can build a dossier on you which is the equivalent of the ear tag in a cow. It's to identify you. Now, with that identification, if you're a farmer, you know that your cow number 6732, is getting older. She may have stopped producing quite so much milk, or she's reached the weight, the prime weight, to take that cow to market for slaughter, where you can gain the most money. You see, the dossier is only a way to identify who you are, tag you with a number, and then correlate that number to a person, or in this case, a part of the herd. And when that's been accomplished, then they go about from time to time reviewing through their documentation and saying, okay, let's see. We got to do some herd culling, so let's take a look and see which numbers come up. That's what this is really about. Government's not here to protect you. Government's not here to benefit you in any way, shape, or form. Obamacare and the Federal Reserve System, banking, NSA, laws, rules, regulations, they're all designed to break down your ability to, one, have courage. I mean, let's dispirit the enemy, right? It's a psyops war, folks. This is a psyops war. And it's a hardened war. You know, it's soft tyranny. We call it soft tyranny because, they're not pointing guns at us yet. But the truth is they are pointing a lot of guns at us. They're pointing information and economic and manipulation and propaganda guns at us. You're told, just get back out there and eat some grass. We'll call you if we need you. When that call comes, they tell you, listen, get into the back of the truck. We're going to take you to an even nicer farm where the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. I mean, I hate to use this farming and cow analogy, but Tagnab, if it doesn't work. You see, you are a member of the herd. And like every good cattleman, they need to know who's in the herd. They need to have a head count. They need to know who's productive and who's not. They need to know who to cull and when. And they need an easy identification tag. Federal Reserve, banking rules, banking regulations, taxation, NSA, CIA, FBI, DHS, all these groups are doing nothing but drawing information, gathering it all, putting it all together, putting it on the magnetic strip of your ear tag. And at some point, the farmer comes out and he says, this fine day, we're going to have to cull some of this herd. There's too many of them, and we can't support that many cows on this few many acres. Or, this one's no longer productive and not giving enough milk. Or this one has reached optimal slaughter weight, where we know that we can get the highest dollar to run this one up to the sale barn. It's sad to think that that's how we're viewed. But I encourage you to play along with this analogy for a few minutes. And when we're done with this show today, I want you to just sit down and think about it. Because it is how we are viewed. The Federal Reserve is here for no other purpose than to milk us, use us, control us. And Hungary yesterday broke the mold. The world is coming awake, folks. Do not lose heart. Be of good courage and be fierce in your determinations. Everywhere you look, the world is fighting for liberty and freedom. We are not alone. Have a great day. You're listening to America's Voice Now. You can find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. You can find this and every other program that we do in live video posted up on YouTube. And you can find us there at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. Have a great day. God bless.